Hello, everybody. Looks like we're getting people rolling in. Thank you for joining. My name is Rob. We'll be starting here maybe in the next couple minutes. We already got one question in the chat. Um, Thank you, Jace. We got one in the chat, like I said. If you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat. We'll start putting some eyes on it. We have some eyes on this side of the line that can maybe start doing some research. So, like I said, the earlier you get your questions in, we will take them in the order in which they come in. So, I did get Jace's already. So, if you do have a question, feel free to put it in the chat, and we'll get started here in about 4 minutes or so, 3 minutes or so. You can. All right. So, we got another question in the chat. Can I export multiple flows and download them as a package? From Sean. Yep. For about flows and downloading them as a package. We'll have to get some clarity on that because there's a number of ways to do it, more than likely, but it's about kind of what your actual use case would be, and we'll get some information from you here in a minute. But I do appreciate that question. So we have two questions coming in, um, and we will look at them here in just a moment. It's 12:02 at this moment. We'll probably get started around 12:04, 12:05, just so we can get some folks in here that show up. But we do have a relatively crowded room. I got another question from James. So James just came in. We got you as well. All right. So like I said, we'll get started here in about 60 seconds or so. Thank you all for joining. My name is Robert, and I'll be able to hopefully provide you some answers or at least give you some direction. If you do have any questions and you haven't put them in the chat already, we have three. Feel free to put them in and we can start putting some eyes on them. Because like I said, we do have some people behind the lines here that can start doing some research for you, especially if you have something a little more niche or something a little more specific. So we'll get started here in just a moment. All right, we got 12:04 and some change. I'm going to go ahead and kind of just go ahead and get this ball rolling just so we can get everyone information in the way that they need it. See if I can close out of this. Jace, the first question from Jace, it says question about Boolean data into a form. I'll just see if I can unmute you and get some clarity on that, or maybe talk about what your use case is and maybe what you're planning on doing with that data after it, or where you're getting it from, or something along those lines. So, Jace, I have you unmuted if you don't mind. Thank you.
Hey,
Hey.
yeah. So the way that I've typically been pulling data into a form is just by it's only been a string data type with
Okay.
the label and then pick from data method.
Hmm.
And then I realized I have a Boolean data type in my data structure that I want to show in a form. It's just a checkbox, so like check
Hmm.
or not checked. And I realized I don't know how to pull in non-string data into a form.
Okay. Let's take a look at it together. So I'll kind of just do some building. I'll create a random form here with a checkbox and see if we can kind of parse some of this over. We'll do some string stuff as well so we can see the various differences. I'll put a button here. We'll just call this for the string, we'll call it a name kind of field. And checkbox, we'll call this active employee or something along those lines.
Yeah.
Um, active employee as a Boolean checkbox. We have the label as a text box. So with the active checkbox, and again, I probably just need some clarity. When I add the checkbox, it does give us an option for Boolean inputs.
Yeah.
So where is the is it not letting you map in? So you have data coming from some kind of a source. What is the source in which the data is coming from? Is it a CSV or are you
It's a data structure.
okay?
Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, sure. I mean, that's at least informative and some. So you have data from a data structure and you're trying to read it on the form itself.
Okay, sorry. Let me back up. So there's two forms. One form is going to take the take in the information. So that's where they're checking the box. And then I'm saving that information down to the case entity.
Okay.
And then from the case entity, I want to pull out the information that's stored there into another form.
Let's see if I have any built already. So the gap is in between the first and the second form. Is that correct? Where's the gap in the data, where it's not transferring across?
On the second form, I'm
Okay.
just normally I would, let's just say we have a data structure
Hmm.
or a case entity that a user has kind of configured with a form, typing in the name, email, all that stuff, and saving it down to a data structure. I want to show the user what they inputted by, on a separate form. We can say it's like a review form to see all the information that they entered. And I don't know how to pull in the Boolean data because the only method that I've been doing is pulling in string data with the label. So I'm like, how should I show the Boolean data
Yeah, it should
on
give
a
you an
form?
option on that second form. I'm gonna try and do some building here and see if I'm missing something.
Okay.
Um, get rid of this. Apologies.
When I pull it in with the string,
Hmm.
it's just or sorry, when I pull in the label and pick from data name and I pick the Boolean um data type,
Yeah.
it's just always giving false, even if I checked it and it's true. And when I debug the flow, it shows that it's working, that, if they do check it, it says true.
Hmm.
But then when I pull it into the form, it'll only give false. And I'm thinking it's because it's pulled in with a label and that's looking for string data. It's like incorrectly mapped.
Interesting. Let's see here if anything is popping up on my end, and I'll see if I can kind of just rebuild this out a tiny bit. So something along these lines will run. We'll make this constant. We'll make him an active employee just for now. Robert. Um, so on the first form, they're entering in information, and you want the second form to show that information to them in some kind of confirmation methodology.
Yeah, sure. That works.
All right, kind of in here as fast as I can. Guess I probably could have duplicated that previous form. Um, So I'm gonna unturn these off so they're not enabled just for a use case. So like if just I think it's a good practice in cases like this. You can turn off initially enabled so that they can't edit it on the second slide unless you want that. But I'll just do it because I know that we have some projects that utilize that kind of method here. So right here we're outputting active employee and name as a Boolean, and right here we are inputting. Let's go ahead and select it from flow to make sure we have the right one. Active employee. And name, we'll do name again, just make sure we have the right one. So with this, we're ignoring, we don't need this anymore. Let's take a quick look here and see what we can do here. So I have it checkboxed over, and you said that's the issue, is that it's not giving you that same information?
I was just pulling it in as a label. Um,
Pulling it in as a label. Let's look.
yeah.
I'll
So I
click
would
on,
just, and I don't know if this is probably not right, but like, yeah, over on the toolbox, I would just drag in
Mhm.
label.
Yeah, so the label is just going to be a text. You're not going to be able to, you can label it for certain data types, like a Boolean or whatever it would be, but it's not going to change the label. You could get text from the data name, but then
Yeah.
that's going to want to be a string because it's text.
Okay, that's what I was asking. I didn't know another way to bring in Boolean data that was, I
So
only was bringing in string before.
yeah, so you want it to basically say whatever, this is an active user
Yeah, yeah. Or
as a,
like
as a
true, false. Yeah.
yeah. What I would recommend, and also, there's 100 ways to do anything, but what I might recommend for, if you wanted that kind of user interface for your end user, is you could do something along the lines of an active form flow with
Mm,
a set control, and you can set the control or set the label text or set the text box value to a certain thing, and then that'll loosely convert your Boolean into text information with the lowest path of resistance in which I can think about right now. So the way that I would probably do something like that is I would go down here to active form flows and I would say Boolean to string, um, and we'll run it at startup. And then you can have a rule. Um, Trying to think of the rule with the least amount of provisioning here. But you can have some type of rule that specifies we have to provision some data in here. Are we using that data structure or do we just go with?
oh, so you don't have to put the data structure there? Or I probably would because
Yeah,
I
you
need.
probably would. I couldn't remember if when I made the forms, if I just like kind of drew the lines or if I even used the data structure.
Okay,
Um, but
that
you
works.
could, yeah, you could.
Okay, that's okay.
So
I'm just putting it in my notes how I'm gonna do it.
yeah, so you can do something along these lines. And again, this is maybe not because I don't know if the forms I originally made I actually use as data structures because I was kind of clicking fast.
Yeah,
But now
that's
that I
okay.
did that, I should be able to go down here and go active employee Boolean uh, is false or true, however you want your paradigm paths to work. So then
Uh-huh.
this will give us two paths. And then you could use like if you wanted to convert that checkbox to like an actual phrase saying, if I get to load, set control value, and you could put, a control on there. I don't know if I have that label. Or input data. Nope, not that one. I'm gonna have to add the actual label form input data. Oh, here it is. Form data. You can say, okay, the name label. Um,
So
well,
where would I?
you'd probably want it to be a text box so that you could do custom text and then, so go ahead. Apologies, Jason.
No, that's okay. I'm just trying to configure those set control values. I'm like, what would that look like? Where do I set the text, I guess, that's going to
Yeah,
show up?
that's why I was thinking that we might need it to be a text box rather than a label. Because like, let's say hypothetically, I wanted the, uh, man, I can't figure out. Oh, here it is. Form data. Oh, it's up top. let's just say hypothetically that I wanted the name text box to say I put an additional text box on there that
Mhm.
says um Boolean validation statement is the name of my text box. You can then put a constant saying this is true,
Gotcha.
and then the label is not going to give me that because there's not really much you can edit on the label. Um, but I can go here. I know I'm kind of clicking fast. Apologies. This is true, and then do the same thing down here for false for the same form control. So form data, the text box
Interesting.
label, or say a text box, and then say this is false. See if it'll switch over to constant for me. Nope. This is false. I can spell
Okay.
here. The information is coming from the form data. Yeah, this is kind of a weird circular loop here.
Yeah.
But because we're expecting that data structure.
Wait, what
Mm,
is this that we're on right now? What is this information input? Can I see?
so
Oh,
I was just trying to provision the input that would actually run this sub data flow, but because I kind of halfway constructed with a data structure and halfway constructed linearly, I'm trying to figure out what
yeah.
the path of least resistance is.
So here it's like, in my case, it's going to be looking for the data structure. Where the rule is going to run, I guess, is going to be based on the data structure. So that's what I'm going to do is I'm going to feed it that.
Mhm.
Is that correct?
Yeah. That if so, correct. If you
Okay.
are, let me just edit this one more time. Let's do ignore on this just to close this out if it'll let me. I got to make sure I'm actually utilizing some of this data structure information. Let's see here. So this is for active employee. Boolean. I'm gonna change this over here as well to your data structure for the name.
I'd say, I mean, for the inputs, hi, this is Greg, by the way, another trainer. I'd say for the inputs, yeah, Rob was right. Like you kind of need to choose where you're pulling in the data from. Is it going to be from your data structure or is it the form input data from the first form? So it sounds
Mhm.
like you're putting the data into the first form, saving it to your data structure, and then in the second form, using the data structure that holds the data to generate whatever you want in the second form. So it's kind of like a combination of both. You just have to work on the mapping for that.
Okay. We're like building the first form is like creating a date a case entity.
The first form is creating a case entity.
Yeah, with that first
Yes.
form, with the user inputs there, the way our flow
Hmm.
is set up, like it takes that inputs and creates a case entity with it.
Okay.
And then we're pulling from the case entity in, this second form that lets them review later down the road what they've inputted before.
Right. Right. So I think what Rob was showing, so that sounds like a really smart way to complete the process. And by using the active form flow, like
Uh-huh.
Rob was showing, you would just have to configure that and get the data from the case entity data structure at that point.
Okay. I think that'll work. My
Yeah.
only other, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just saying, yeah, I think that
Okay.
should.
Okay.
Yeah, and
Gotcha. So,
you could put it in here. That was the problem is that we kind of had a linear mapping from here to there, and then when we're
right.
in the active form flow, we're trying to pull from a data structure. So I would need a step like this create to actually put it into a case
Yes.
entity so that it could be read by said. Like
Yes.
I built halfway in one direction and then halfway in the other, which
That makes sense.
didn't help me
This
too much,
is
but
this looks more like a very simple version of our flow that we have.
yeah.
That create case. So the only other question I have is on that second form to get the active form flow configured to that text box. I guess as I'm saying this out loud, I think I'm kind of answering my own question, but I just need to make sure that the component is on the form, the text box, so that I can reference
Yes,
that text box in my
as
active.
as the set control value. Yep.
Okay.
And then what I would do too is as well is you can make it so it's, and I'll actually add one here just so we can maybe bring this a little more full circle. You can turn off that enabled and it'll give you that kind of gray text so that people can't edit it.
Mhm.
But if you just put a text box in there and you set control value, it'll run that rule logic at startup. And if the input value for that Boolean was true, it'll put certain text in that text box. And if it is false, it'll put other text in that text box based on how you have those set control values. So like here, I'll kind of put this information on here in just a moment when I can kind of get to populate over. Looks like I'm kind of. So I did get a thank you, James, in the chat. So we have another user in the chat who's got a pretty robust knowledge saying that you can convert the Boolean before it gets to the form as well and use the converted value on the form. So we do have converters on like the inputs and outputs of data. I'm gonna kind of finish walking this path, and then I'll maybe show you that as well. So we'll call this the validated Boolean text or something. Um, just for solidarity here.
Mhm.
Um, and obviously you might not want to put a label on it if the information has that on there. But now that when I go into this, and again, I have it run at startup rather than having it be triggered by something.
Yeah.
Now that I've done that, I can set the control value of rather than that name text box, it would be form data,
Mhm.
right here, validated Boolean text box. And now that text box will get populated with this information.
Can I look at those controls one more time? Sorry. The
Yeah, of
sec
course.
you okay. It's just we go to form data. I think I already have
Mhm.
everything. And
Yeah, and
then
it'll show you all the things on your form, and you just want
yeah.
to use the text box.
Okay. Excellent. And then it's gonna put in okay, cool.
And another alternative would be just to have a statement rule there and allow actions on the statement rule as the output. And you could actually make your action to be a string for whatever you want the output to read.
It's
So you say, yeah. Again, this is just another way to walk down the same path. True, sure. This statement is true. This is correct, right? I'm going on the right walk here,
Yeah,
Greg.
yeah.
And then, but I would, if I was in your boat, I think the path of least resistance is that active form flow, um, rather than running converters and all that, because you can run into some
okay.
issues if you convert it. The James's sentiment is good, but if you convert it over here, you might want to verify that it doesn't break something later on down the string or
Yeah,
something.
I see.
Whereas
Okay.
this is pretty low invasion.
Okay, cool. I think I'm good. I think I got a good game plan from here.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
Uh,
thank you so much. I appreciate
yeah,
your help.
yeah, no problem. Thank you guys. All right, so and thank you, James, for some insight too. The output of the rule will be desired text. Cool. So the second question, I think in order we had here was, can I export multiple flows and download them as a package? So I'm going to unmute because there's a handful of ways, and I think that my first brain goes to some type of when you're exporting, you can specify. But I'm going to unmute you if I can find my thing here. There we go. Sean, feel free to let us know what is your use case and what are you trying to do there? Sean, I did have you unmuted if you can bring some clarity. You might be AFK for a moment.
Can you
Oh,
hear
there you
me
go.
now?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay.
Perfect. Yep, sounds great.
Hello,
Hello.
good. Okay. I complete some work in the two flows. It's within the big project. I just want to export this two flow and pass it to the QA for testing. But looks like if I select two flow, I only have some group option to do. I can't do the export. I have
Of an
to
individual.
export the flow one by one. Yeah.
Hmm. Let me see if I can do
It's
some
right.
exploration here. Yeah, just to be honest, I haven't done a lot of this exporting, but let's see if I can find a way to parse it down a little bit.
This is export the whole folder.
Right. I was gonna see if there was a way for me to parse it down. Something that maybe or we might miss here. Boolean data chase. So this has given me the ability to export just a singular flow here. When I went to export and I used this folder rather than exporting the total packet, I could then go through and say I only want particular flows.
Okay, I see. I select the folder. That inside the folder, I can select what I need. Okay,
Yeah.
great. I'll try that. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. All right, let's go. Let's move forward a little bit here. Let's go with, I think, James, you were next. I will have to have you unmute, but this might be something I got to ask somebody because I am not super familiar with single sign-on. But I'll see if maybe Greg and I can do some exploration. I'll unmute. I think it's good to hear from you again. Good to see you again. Let me see if I can find you. There we are. Boom. Can you give me a little more information so even if I can't figure it out, I can find someone that can?
Yeah, yeah. So the issue here really is that we have two different, we have a middleware department that sets up
Hmm.
our SSL and all that stuff. So they do a lot of work behind the scenes that I'm not familiar. So I'm trying to connect the dots here afterwards because I have stuff that I have to do for that when people sign in, checking
Hmm.
affiliations and all that stuff. Anyway, so when you set up SSO and a SAML login, it creates in the settings a SAML settings.
Yep.
And when you go into that, there is you can pick where your login flow is going to be executed.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
And what they did is they put it under designers. Let me see. Oh, system defaults. And then they created a folder called SAML. And that's where they put that login flow. Is that standard practice or, I mean, can I put that anywhere or does it need to be in that system folder there, that designer system folder?
My initial guess is that it would need to be in the designer system folder. Where is it at on here? You said it's under designers.
Yeah, designers, if you catalog,
Okay. Thank you.
and then there's
System.
yeah, system.
And
And then let me see.
probably accounts, if I had to guess.
System default, sorry. Where's that at? Let's see. This is such a huge folder.
Yeah.
Catalog. Yeah, that's where it is. Catalog. And then we have a folder called System Defaults.
Yeah, I'm in the system defaults.
Okay, sorry. And then
Yeah.
we have it looks to me like he just created a folder called SAML, which has got where he stuck the login flow that he created.
Yeah. And my guess is we didn't create it before that. What I'll do, so let me make sure you're just looking for best practices with the
Yeah,
SSO and
because, and
SAML and how to
here's the
store that.
reason. Here's the reason. I
Yeah.
wouldn't care, but when I migrate to other environments, I'm going to want to keep that login flow and migrate it along with,
Certainly.
with my because I have other flows that are associated with this. So, I mean, I can add it from here to another project,
Right.
which is basically pointing back to a project I have in another structure in my folders. But I just want to know, is that the best? Because it looks like when you pick it on the settings, you're just picking it from wherever.
Right.
So it looks to me like on the settings page, it doesn't care where it's stored. And I just, and to me, it would be better for me to store it in my project with all the other flows and reports and data structures I created to so when I migrate those things, or what you guys call, to the repository, when I move things to the, check in, check out of repository stuff,
Yeah.
I can move it up the stack as
Mhm.
one piece. But if it's sitting over here in the system folder, then it kind of gets lost.
Right.
And I don't have it associated with all the other elements, and it's just, that's just that one flow that gets kicked off every time someone, CAS authenticates. But I kind of want to keep all the stuff that's associated with that in one project.
Yeah, let me I haven't let me there's an architect right around the corner that does a lot of this. Let me ask him if he's got some intel so I can give you something today. And if not, I'll definitely
Yeah.
reach back out to you. But just give me one moment. I'm gonna mute you, or mute myself. Greg's still on the line though, so
Yeah, no
um
problem. If that wouldn't be happening to be COVID, would it?
it wouldn't be Kobe. No,
Okay,
Kobe's on the other side. It's
okay.
Josh Lax, who's been here for
Yeah,
like 7 years.
because I've got a ticket in with Kobe. He's
Okay.
going over that exact flow that I wrote, just helping me out to to parse
Yeah.
some of that data. But anyway, yeah, I just kind of want to know what breaks, because I do want to keep all that together. So I would rather not have that folder where it is right now in this, because it looks like we just created it there. I don't know if that's what the instructions say for that group when they're setting this up or not. And I don't know if there's a reason it should be there, because it looks like you could have that flow running from anywhere. Could you just pick it and it'll run it? So
Yeah, I
that's
think
why the
that's a really
question.
good question, James. It's Greg. I
Mhm.
my first instinct was similar to you, that it probably doesn't matter, and it could be other places. But then I was wondering why it might matter.
Yeah,
And
that's my question exactly.
yeah,
Because I mean, I have other things that I had to create data structures. There's going to be other subsidiary flows that kind of go with this as time goes on. We're going to be, setting up security and things of that nature based on roles that come in, affiliations. So there's going to be other subflows and things of that nature. And I would really like to keep them all in one project. And I don't want to
yeah.
have to, I don't want them sitting over here in the system side, um, if possible. So I'm just wondering, is there a specific reason it should be there?
We do have VT chimed in on the chat, who always has some good intel. And he's saying that the SAML folder is a decisions core folder, and that flow has to be there. You may still have an issue when you migrate that folder. It has a different ID if it is not in the SAML folder. So that could be the case.
Okay,
Again, Rob is asking somebody right now who would definitely know for sure, but that
okay.
sounds like it.
Yeah, I'd have to
If
ask
VT
about
is
that
right.
too, because yeah, I would want to understand that better
Yeah,
specifically.
yeah,
So if I can get, maybe if I need to put a ticket in, I will, but I would really like to talk to somebody who's kind of an expert in that,
right.
to let me, even if they do say this is where it should be, I'm just the type that I want to
All
know,
right. I
okay,
am back.
why?
Oops.
Right. Yeah, see what Rob found out.
So yeah, so you're gonna have a handful of options there when it comes to that provisioning. You could make that flow into and put it into a project and then import it and export it between your various kind of stages, prod and dev. But he definitely kind of uh, hesitated on that, saying that you're better off re-provisioning it between each environment from like a security and compliance, because for the same reason that we don't let you kind of import and export accounts between,
Right,
just because you
right.
don't want to make something with certain compliance and certain understanding in your dev, and then when you actually get it to prod, it's not as robust. But he said there are options for that, and you could do what you said and store it in a folder somewhere so that it's easier to import and export. But just you do want to be aware of that. You might have some security and compliance unforeseen issues just by migrating things between versions without really um, looking at it fresh in the prod environment, I guess is the way he worded it.
Okay, all right.
But he said as well, like I'll reach back out to you. Like he said to kind of take it offline. And I know you said you're already talking with Kobe. Um,
Yeah, I've got
but
a ticket and with it, it's a little bit different ticket, but I can probably, if he's real familiar with that, I could ask him this question as well.
yeah, and they'll just give you more insight to the security and compliance side. Cause like I said, the last thing you want is to, with your SSO for
Yeah, yeah, I
importing and
understand
exporting.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, because this is just a flow that's basically I'm just parsing out the the attributes that are coming
Mhm.
in so that I'm storing them off in an entity so that I have them available whenever I need them in
Yeah.
subsequent flows. so that we can write security type flows or whatever. So
Mhm.
those will be written, you know. This is just basically all it's doing is parsing out the data, which is going to be the same in
Sure.
every environment. I mean, the
Yeah.
CAS, response is not going to be different.
Right. And I
And
think
that's
that if
all it's doing. So I don't, that's where my question, I mean, if that's, I just would need to understand more of that,
yeah.
what they mean by security and compliance stuff, because
Yeah, I
maybe
think
there's something in
if
the
you're just
system
using it to
now.
parse data and like you only want certain field and all that, I think you probably could be fine with attaching it to a project or putting it in a folder and importing and exporting. I think it's more or less, if you had something a little more,
Yeah, if
robust
I was
with your
assigning
SSO,
like,
right?
yeah, because I will get into that eventually, but right now, I don't want to do, because then that's a reason I don't want to do that in the SAML login flow. I
Hmm.
don't want to do that I want to take that and make it specific to an environment what I do with the data. All I'm doing though is parsing out the data and flattening it out because, it comes in as an XML and it's all, just a name and a value. And I got to determine, what name goes with what field and what it means to us, all that stuff.
Yeah.
So that's standard across the board. And that's all I'm doing. Just get them into a table so that I can use those later.
And what I'll do is as well, we do have someone in the chat, VT, who commonly has insight. He's saying SAML is a decisions core folder and the flow has to be there. So you'll have issues when you migrate because the folder is going to have a different ID. I already said that. Sorry.
Right.
I guess Greg said that while I was
Right.
talking with Josh.
Okay.
But like I said, I will personally reach back out to you today, James, and make sure that I can give you some more insight on that, just so I can make sure that I have it uh, spot on, and I'll send you some information
Yeah,
today.
all right, not a problem. Thanks a lot. I just was
Yeah.
curious about that because I just want to make sure I do things properly. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
and I appreciate the
All right,
question. There's a good space for it. I just unfortunately don't have the insight right now.
all right,
And again, maybe Jared might, but he's out for the day. So, but I'll have something for you today.
all right, not a problem. Thanks a lot, guys.
All right, thank you guys.
Mm.
It looks like we are through all the questions. Nicholas Case raised his hand. Yeah, I'll let you speak, Nicholas. Give me 1 second. Boop, boop, boop. There you go. There you go. Hey, Nicholas.
Hi. I just had a question.
Sure.
We are using forms to capture data for our
Hmm.
company, and it's not really an issue, it's more of just like a minor headache.
Hmm.
We're processing lots of data, like 105 lines worth of data in a form. It's taking, upwards of a couple of minutes for that form with the data repeater in it to process
Hmm.
all that data. I was just wondering if you guys maybe have a solution to maybe increase or rather decrease the time it takes for that data to be processed through the form and then kick off to the other steps.
Let me think here.
I've tried threaded jobs and like running flows for lists um, after the form because I thought it was where we were generating the database entities is where it was freezing, but that's not the case. It's the actual form itself that is like the the speed limiting step.
Hey, Nicholas, it's Greg. Hey,
Hi, Greg.
what kind of data is it? Like, what's the data type? What
It's
is
a
it?
database structure, a
Okay.
simple database structure.
Um, I'm just wondering if perhaps you could save that as a file reference entity. Because I don't know if you remember from training, we went through the idea that file references actually are faster and they
Sure.
take up a lot of less space. So I'm wondering if you could build some logic that would save it as a file reference, perhaps to speed it up. But it may be best for us to sort of tweak that and send you an email to let you know if that's actually a good idea or not.
Okay.
What's your instinct about that?
I mean, changing the data type could be done. It would require a lot of rework and editing flows because it's basically our primary database for the business process we're using it for.
You might be able to
So
convert it in between. You wouldn't have to change your overall structure, but you could convert it. I'm trying to think of the path of least resistance here. Um, trying to think. It's a database
we do
structure.
have them upload a file and then it does create a file reference. So like the file reference is there. Um, It's just a matter of processing that file reference and then mapping it to the proper data type.
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering. If it's just running through as like file data, then from a database perspective, that's taking a lot more time. I don't know. I don't know. That's kind of my first thought. And again, I think it's probably a good idea to sort of maybe we could ask somebody, maybe we could test it and see if that's a plausible idea. But I mean, you're right. Like our ultimate goal is to save it or convert it somehow so that it speeds up the process.
Mhm. So would you recommend, so okay, let me just run you through the flow that we have currently, right? We display our person who's uploading the data a form to upload their Excel spreadsheet, which every row is a data point for the database, right?
Mm-hmm.
After which point it gets mapped from like CSV to object mapping.
Object mapping. Mhm.
Uh-huh. So we map it. We then display the information they just uploaded in a review form to make sure the data was converted properly and it's also like
Mhm.
accurate data.
Mm-hmm.
After which point they submit, that's the point it freezes. After that form, that review form, I then have them go through for each step, for each line item. It'll create the database entry and then just loop through every single time. And once it's done, it goes to an endpoint.
Hmm.
But the latency is in your
The form itself, like
right,
the form is what freezes, and then like I ran it in the debugger, and it's stuck on the form for like a minute and a half, 2 minutes, and then it'll instantly
Populate.
complete all the for each loops. So I'm not
And
sure
you
if
said
it's actually the for each loops that are slowing it down, or if it's just a UI thing where it thinks it's the form that's slowing it down.
in the form when you view it, are you using just like a document viewer to view?
No. We're using a data repeater to display the CSV to object mapping data
Mhm.
in each individual line because we give them the option to edit that data.
yeah.
Okay.
It's probably something along the lines of this: file import, CSV to object mapping, I9. I'm just trying to think of what we could do to increase your latency or decrease your latency.
But you're saying the data repeater, being able to view the data repeater on the form is what you think is taking the longest?
That's what I would imagine. Yeah, that's like
Yeah.
where all the data is. And like each line item has, 9 different variables on it.
Yeah. Um, the other thing is we could create a support ticket for this and formally, take the time to make sure that we're helping you choose the best conversion if you need to convert and data structure, the data repeater, all of that, just to make sure it's the most efficient. Would you like us to do that?
Yeah, that'd be nice.
Yeah, I'll
Okay.
set that up for you. Yeah, because we can't look at your project on here because it's like you can't show
It's
your
like
users,
recorded. Yeah.
but they can actually look at your project with you and maybe get some more insight where it could just be as simple as, instead of
Just
doing a
run a
for
converter
each,
flow or
doing a run
something.
flow for list and running it async or something like that.
Yeah. I mean, that's what I tried doing. But like I said, like it doesn't matter what's after the form itself is what's freezing.
The form, yeah.
Yeah. So like it would have to be pre the form display that we converted into some faster file type. But then even then, I don't know if that'll work if the form itself is freezing because there's no way to do like multi-threading on the form itself.
Mm-hmm. And you have to have the form, right? I mean,
Yeah, we
dumb
do have to have it.
question, but
Yeah.
maybe not a dumb question. Okay.
But yeah, if you guys want to set a support ticket up, that's fine with me. And I can meet with somebody, at a different time where we can actually share screens and kind of walk through the process. I know it's hard to do this like abstract without seeing
Yeah.
the actual flow itself.
Yeah, and we are getting a recommendation in the chat from other users saying you could try to use a Go async after the form, but between the two, and you could run it asynchronously, but it would still, I think if you're populating thousands of rows, but like I said, someone on the support team can actually look at your physical project with you and maybe
Right, yeah,
make some
be all
insight that
around,
way.
yeah.
Okay. So I'll submit that for you. You'll get an email here in the next like 30 minutes or so saying the ticket has been supported. And then James, I'll reach back out to you today with more insight if I can figure it out about SSO, but, or SAML as well. But I think that is the questions that we have purged here. Make sure.
Appreciate it, guys.
No, appreciate it. Thanks for coming in, man. So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and end the call just so I can get in with um the support ticket and get in with some people and get James some information. This will be on YouTube here shortly. But thank you guys all. We'll close it out and we'll see you tomorrow for Jeremy.
All right, thanks.
Thank you all.